and players smiling.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks and the Gametime app.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. This is Sherrod Blakely, joined by the one and only Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe. What's going on, G?
What up, man? You finally have an opponent. Finally know what's going down. So it should be fun.
Yeah. I'm in my feelings a little bit, but before I get into why I'm in my feelings, I just want to remind our listeners that they're listening to the Big Three NBA podcast, which is part of the CLNS Media Network. This episode is brought to you by Gametime, which has you covered with great last-minute ticket prices on all types of sporting events, as well as concerts. And this episode, like all of the Big Three NBA podcast episodes, is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and all of your podcasting apps. Now, Gary knows all too well why I'm in my feelings. My Detroit Pistons did not handle their business. We had, after the game, Gary, we
choked three of the games.
How did my crew lose 4-2 when really they should have been up 5-1?
And lost all three games at home. I mean, you talking about, man, I was like, they're up 112, 105, 2.5 left. I'm like, all right,
we got this.
One more play, one more bucket, one more. They scored one more point. Like, missed free throw, and I said, and I love Cade Cunningham, but man, he just was not money down the stretch in this series. Like, he had a couple of jumpers that he missed. He missed a layup. And it wasn't an easy layup. It was challenged, but just their whole execution, that turnover that Karl Anthony Towns, got the run out on, and then the greatness of Jalen Brunson. It's sad because you're just like, one more bucket, one more play, and they just couldn't make it.
Yeah, so I'm like I said, I'm in my feelings on that one, but I gotta turn the page. Got to turn the page because the Celtics, we now know that they're playing the New York Knicks, as you touched on earlier. So we got to talk about the Knicks, but I had to get my Pistons, had to get that out of my system. The New York Knicks, that's who they're playing. First time these two teams have scored off in the playoffs in more than a decade. It was back in 2013. And how did these two teams get there? Boston, they took care of business with the Orlando Magic, took them out in 5 games. As we just touched on, the New York Knicks, they put away my Detroit Pistons in 6 games. Gary, which was a better matchup, the team that they're playing or the team that they could have faced in Detroit, when you think about this in the second round?
I just think Detroit would have been a better matchup because of their inexperience, as we saw. Like, if they had managed to get past the Knicks, I just don't think they would have had enough to get past the Celtics in a 7 game. I think they would have been done. And so I think the Pistons would have been a better matchup. Now, if you want to break down athletically and all that, yeah, but we saw Detroit make a plethora of mistakes during that series, game-changing plays that they could have, obviously they didn't get the call in game 4. That changed the whole series, because now it's not, because if that was the case, Detroit pulls that out, we're going to a game 7, right? Or, we're going to a game 7 in New York without question. But it was just the inexperience. I just think the Knicks, considering they have the experience in terms of playing the Celtics 4 times a year, they've got some game-ready guys in Brunson, in, Mikal Bridges. At times, Cat can do his disappearing act at times. But OG Anunoby, they got the dogs. And I expect a tough series.
And speaking of dogs, we are being joined by a guest in a minute who is anything but a dog. She is a gamer. She is coming off the aisle. She's doing the anti-MB right here. She's a gamer. We are joined by the one and the only.
No, because Sherrod gave me the wrong link, and I've been sitting in that link for 10 minutes.
What happened?
And I go on Gmail and see that you sent the new link at 5:01.
Gary, what happened?
You sent me the wrong link.
Oh my
That's
God.
what happened.
Kwani.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You sent me the wrong link, Sherrod. I was set up.
We called the play. We changed up the play, and Kwani,
check the group chat. Check the group chat.
Gary, Kwani looking around like, wait. Gary, this was a Detroit Pistons moment we just had. We just had a Detroit Pistons moment. Haley was thinking one thing, Duran was thinking another thing, Thompson was thinking another thing.
You sent me the wrong link. That's the only excuse that I'm hearing.
Why gotta be on me though? Why?
Because
Gary, throwing teammates under the bus. Really? That's what we gonna do?
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
She's saving herself.
Exactly.
Kwani ain't worried about you. Kwani ain't tripping. She is not tripping about you.
This is why we can't win championships. This is why we can't win championships.
Goodness, you gotta be kidding me.
It's all right though.
So Kwani,
yes.
Now that you back at the point, we're just talking. We literally just got started a couple minutes ago. We're talking about, just the Celtics facing New York, and just which was a better matchup. And the thing that I think, frankly, I think Detroit would have been a better matchup. And here's why: Detroit, the lack of experience that Gary was talking about, totally get that, makes sense. But the point that you made about athleticism, the point that you made about, I just think when you talk about sheer talent, I think Detroit would have been a little bit more of a trickier matchup. And the other thing too, Gary, that I can't help but not think about is that Boston, I don't think they would come into that series with Detroit with the same level of respect and focus that they're going to have for New York. Because they're going to be looking at Detroit kind of the way you are. They're young. They really should have lost that. They probably should have won that series against New York. They just beat them because they were better, more talent. They were just more talented team, and guys stepped up in moments that they're probably not going to do in this series. We're going to be all right. We might be done with this. We might be 1, 2, 3, 4 and out the door with these cats. I think
you said they were too young to know better. Detroit,
yeah, right. They're too talented, and frankly, they're not at that point where they're overwhelmed by thinking, "Oh my God, this is a big bad Detroit Pistons," or excuse me, a big bad Boston Celtics. They're thinking, "Well, we got nothing to lose." New York, on the other hand, they're going to respect New York. They respected them throughout the regular season. Remember, before the season started, New York was supposed to be the team that the Celtics had to worry about. And all the Celtics did was bust that ass every single time they got on the floor against New York. I mean, every time they played at the end of the game, all I could think about was that Tom and Jerry meme where you got Tom getting that spanking from Jerry, sitting on his knees, just whack, 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 whack. That is the New York Knicks when they play the Boston Celtics. It was like that all season long. So
that'll be exciting to look forward to. But so to that point, because in the last episode you did say that you wanted to see Detroit, and Gary, you saw New York as a better matchup. But now that we're here, how do you think this will all play out?
Gary, I'm gonna take this one, Gary. I'm gonna go first. Damn it. Celtics in 5. I'm not gonna do my Sterling. I'm not gonna do my sharp.
And give like specific.
5 alive, hand jive, monkeys do their thing, day and night. Celtics in 5. No, they ain't gonna do that. Celtics are gonna win it in 5 though.
It's an internet thing, Gary. Just let it go.
New York is gonna show up. New York is going to show up, but they're not. I just don't think that they have the mental, physical toughness and depth to beat the Celtics. And think about it. The Celtics beat Orlando in 5 games. Jrue Holiday was nowhere to be found for most of those games. Payton Pritchard did not play well. Jaylen Brown was up and down. Porzingis played maybe the worst 5-game stretch he's had as a Celtic, and they put away this team in 5 games. Just imagine if they get like 1 or 2 of those guys playing at or above their usual level. And New York is a better team than Orlando, but New York has some clear and undeniable flaws to their roster that the Celtics have shown the ability to exploit. And, again, Jalen Brunson, who's he going to guard? Karl Anthony Towns. Are you really ready to guard Porzingis, who's coming off maybe the worst stretch that he's played? How's that going to go? And if those 2 guys aren't impactful, what you got? Nada. Go ahead, Gary. What you got?
I think it's gonna be a tough series. A long time it's gonna go 7. I just think
you think it's gonna go 7?
I don't think it'll go 7.
Yeah, because me and Kwani were both looking at you side-eye. We thought
No,
you said
I don't think it'll go 7.
basketball.
I think it will be a hard 6, though. It will be like a Orlando series, maybe another game. Because one, Brunson is just, man, he playing the best basketball of his career. That dude's a killer, man. I mean, you look at him and he just makes it happen. He willed that game as much as the Pistons choked, and they did. Brunson willed.
He said that I felt that choked reference by Gary Washburn. I felt personal.
Here his heart. I saw the pain go through.
You saw it felt like he was like Sherrod. You might as well
your boys choked that game, but Brunson was magnificent, and he willed his team to a couple of victories in that series, and I think he's capable of willing the Knicks to a 1 or 2 wins. Now, somebody else on the Knicks is going to have to step up. Like, it can't be Brunson and the Miracles. It's going to have to be like Cat is going to have to go 20 and go 25 and 15, or OG Anunoby or somebody. A wild card is going to have to really deliver for the Knicks to really keep them competitive. But I do think they'll figure out a way to grind out a game. Maybe they're motivated. They know that they've heard for years now that they're not as good as the Celtics. They played second fiddle to the Celtics. Now they've tried to rebuild, and why did they get OG Anunoby and why did they get Mikal Bridges? For the purpose of guarding Tatum and Brown. That's it. They got those 2 guys for this series. Why did they get Cat? For this series. So let's see what they got. I think the Celtics are better. You would hope the key, maybe Jrue Holiday. We'll see. He's still being listed as day-to-day. We'll see if he'll be ready for game 1. We'll see if he practices on Saturday. But to me, I think it will be a tougher series. It'll be like an Orlando-type series where they make it tough, but the Celtics are able to win. I don't think they're just going to glide and embarrass the Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to constantly play hard. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere when they get to the Garden, Madison Square Garden for Game 3. Not that it will be obviously a great atmosphere at TD Garden, but I think New York and Boston haven't played in the playoffs in 12 years. So I expect a tougher series than just like gliding through them. But the Celtics are a better team, and they should win.
Let's get into a little more of the specifics. Last episode, we talked about Jrue Holiday and the level of concern, not knowing who exactly the Celtics were going to be playing. But now that we do, let's play a quick game of fill in the lane. A limited or absent Jrue Holiday means blank to this series outcome.
What you got, Gary?
I think it's going to be a much tougher series without Jrue because he's the one, in addition to Derek White, who can defend Brunson and give Brunson some resistance. They're going to need that. They're going to need a lot of fouls because Brunson's going to foul bait. He's the best in the league next to SGA in terms of getting to the free throw line. So without Jrue Holiday, the Celtics are going to be a little bit deficient on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to have to depend a lot on Derek White. And we'll see if, let's say, a guy like Torrey Craig makes an appearance in this series. Maybe not. Like, do they pull somebody else out of the into the equation and have them play a role? But I just think with a guy like Jrue, he is just so versatile and can do so many things. You're missing a lot, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because they're going to need someone on Brunson and Cat. Now, the other guys, I think that they can, I think they'll be fine guarding OG, but they're all capable scorers. And Josh Hart's that wild card guy who can hit an occasional 3, and he's going to get the offensive rebound. He's going to defend. The Celtics offensively have more firepower. Defensively, you do not want Cat going for 25 and 15 and then Brunson going for 38 and then get to the free throw line 15 times. I think Jrue Holiday could curtail that by making it harder on Brunson.
Yeah, Gary, I hate when this happens. I got to agree with you. I have to agree with you. Everything becomes exponentially more difficult if you have Jrue Holiday anything less than Jrue Holiday. We talk a lot about, what he does from a defensive standpoint, and arguably so. I mean, hell, the players in the league have made it very clear that they think Jrue's the best on-ball defender. So that kind of goes without saying. But to me, it's the bully ball on offense that I think that they really, I think, are missing. Jrue has the ability to and when you think about Brunson, who all likelihood will be the person that will be defending Jrue, I like the idea of Jrue being physical with him on the block. I like the idea of the Knicks trying to put a Band-Aid over that wound by doubling or tilting. If, let's say, Jrue tries to take him on a block and he just kick it out to a wide open Porzingis or kick it out to a wide open Jason Tatum or lightly contested Jason Tatum, depending on which player is coming with the double team or the tilt. And I just think that Jrue, in addition to what he does from a defensive standpoint, I think he gives the Celtics another dimension offensively that creates this portal for so many other guys around him to take advantage of. And to me, when he's not out there, when he's not 100% or close to 100%, it takes away the ability for, in my opinion, for the Celtics to not just win, but win going away. I don't think it's Jrue's presence, I think, is one of the many factors that have allowed the Celtics to win every game this regular season over the Knicks by 16 plus points per game. And that, to me, is something that you can't take lightly. And, we've talked about this before, but the Celtics, for them to repeat as champions, it's not going to be the same formula that they used last year. They're going to have to be guys who are going to have to do things that maybe didn't do quite as much last year and are going to have to do more now. And flip side, guys who maybe did a ton last year, I'm thinking Jaylen Brown, may not be needed to do as much this year for a variety of reasons. For him, his health. So someone has to fill that void. I look at this game as one where I absolutely see a healthy Jrue Holiday being a difference maker for the Celtics and allowing them to not just maintain home court advantage, but just remind the Knicks that you're in Boston, they're the Celtics, and you the Knicks. Facts. Hey, before we go any further, I want to just really give a quick shout out to one of our good friends and sponsors, Gametime, which has you covered with great ticket prices on all types of sporting events as well as concerts. That is the place to be, especially this time of year when you're thinking about the playoffs and you're thinking about the cost of those tickets. You want to save as much money as you can when you can. One of the really cool things about Gametime app is the all-in pricing that shows you the total price before you get to the checkout, and you get a panoramic view of the seats before you buy them, which is a super important deal when you are talking about buying tickets to the playoffs and just frankly being part of the show. So here is what you do to get in on the mix. You have to download the app, and then you go to CLNS. Create the account, use the code CLNS for $20 off, terms apply. Again, that's download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off, terms apply. What time is it? Game time.
Okay, game time. Let's play more games. Let's ask more questions. X Factor. Who is or are your X Factors for Boston in this round, and why?
Who you got, Gary?
I got Payton Pritchard. I think that he'll be unlocked in this series. I think he had some troubles against Orlando. I think he'll be that intangible off the bench who can get the Celtics offense going, hit some open threes. I mean, who's going to guard? Like, if is a campaign, like who is going to be matched up against him? They're not going to want to put one of their primary defenders on him. So it's going to be a guy like Brunson or going to be a guy like Campaign or Deuce McBride. I think this is a series for Payton to flourish, to get the open threes, to run the offense, to get to the rim, to make some of those intangible plays that he has all season to really break out. I think the Orlando series was a little bit tough on him. He had some tough moments. Now, he was able to make some big plays and hit some big shots in that closing game 5. But I think this series has Payton Pritchard written all over it.
Ooh, that's a good pick. I'm going to go with Kristaps Porzingis. KP did not have a good first-round series. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, it was probably the worst 5-game stretch that he's had as a Boston Celtic. He just never really looked like the unicorn that we've known him to be. Really, the only thing he's seen to get the bust was his head, with all them damn stitches in the middle of his head. He wasn't busting nobody on the court. Now, does he have the ability to do that? Absolutely, because we've seen him do it time and time again. And I do think that this is a matchup that will allow him a better opportunity to go off and be the player he has shown himself to be. I like him matched up with Cat. because I just don't think Cat can defend him. I don't think Cat can limit him. And the way the Celtics, I think, run their offense, and again, as I mentioned, with Jrue Holiday and some other Celtics probably looking to play a little bit of bully ball, it's going to create opportunities for KP to catch and shoot from deep. And I think he's going to be locked in. I think he recognizes that he was not anywhere close to the best version of himself in the first round series against Orlando, and he needs to be better. And so to me, he's the X factor, because if he's playing the way he typically plays, this thing is over in 4, maybe 5 games. I am way more bullish on this series than my boy Gary is. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not so much that I don't think the Knicks are good. It's just that I don't think the Celtics have come anywhere close to playing their best basketball, and they still put the team away in 5 games. And the one game that they didn't put them away, there was some kind of that, in theory, could have probably been a sweep. I mean, really, if certain things went a different way down the stretch. There was some questionable officiating in that game, like most of these games. So that is my guy. That KP is my guy. He's the one that I absolutely expect to be the wild card / X factor in this series for Boston.
It's not bad. All right, so
I don't know what Gary was laughing at.
I ain't say nothing. What are you talking about?
Don't make me go upside your head like they did with KP.
That's why we're laughing. That's exactly
bust your head.
Bust
your head.
You just see the blood trickling down.
We all did. I think everyone saw it. But for New York, who do you think the X factors will be?
For New York, I think it's going to be Bridges. I mean, he's the guy. I have a pretty good idea who Gary's going to say, and that was going to be my number 2. But Bridges is the guy that I'm picking to be the difference maker or the wild card guy, just because he's the one guy that I don't think is necessarily going to be at the top tier of the Celtics scouting report who can cause some serious damage. They're going to be locked in on Brunson. They're going to be locked in on Cat. Josh Hart does a lot of intangible stuff. OG is probably their best wing defender. And then you got Bridges, who's just kind of out there floating. And he's a guy that can float for 30 points if you're not careful. So to me, he's the one guy that when I think about wild card, when I think about X factors that could swing this series closer towards the Knicks and in their direction, he's the one guy that if I'm the Celtics, I'm going to probably pay a little more attention to him than the scouting report would suggest I do.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I like my Mikal Bridges. I think that, he can get hot from the 3. He can make those plays. He can't, like that big putback he had against the Pistons last night where, if the Pistons get that rebound, they likely win the game. But he gets that putback, and suddenly the Pistons were cooked.
I'm going to say that his head all night.
Yeah. I'm going to say OG Anunoby. He's a guy who, is, to me, just a very valuable player. He's a plus defender, obviously, very physical, big. And if he's knocking down threes, if he's hitting 2 to 3 or 4 threes a game, that makes him even more dangerous. If he's approaching 20 points, the Knicks it'll be an even tougher series. It'll be a tough series for the Celtics if you're getting 30 out of Brunson, 25 out of Cat, and 20 out of OG Anunoby because he's attacking the rim and hitting those threes. So he's a wild card in this series. There's been times this year he's been extremely quiet. You're like wondering what the hell's going on with him. He has not made an offensive impact in this season series at all with the Celtics. But if he happens to find, that groove, he can definitely be an X factor. I'm going to say him. I've always liked this game. He's hit some big shots. He hit that big shot in the bubble to send it to that Celtics series. The Celtics are about to go up 3-0. In that bubble series, he hits that last second 3, and suddenly it was a series and it went 7. So he's a guy who's not afraid of the moment, a guy who can get hot, and a guy who's capable of scoring 20-plus points. If he does that along with Brunson and along with Cat, that makes the Knicks even more dangerous.
And the thing about him, Gary, that I've always been impressed with is that even though Jason Tatum be giving him buckets, he makes JT work. Tatum has to work really hard to be effective against OG because OG has really good, I think, lateral quickness. He's got that big, strong frame, and he's able to really just kind of get Tatum from his sweet spots more than I think most defenders can. So, and I think, Gary, to be honest with you, I think that's part of why he doesn't score as much. I think Tatum just wears his ass out there, which is kind of understandable when you talk about a guy like Jason Tatum who can wake up in the morning and drop 25 and not even blink about it, not be just a normal day at work. But that's a good one, Gary. I respect that one.
I'm looking at OG's numbers this year. He missed a game against Boston, but in 3 games this year against the Celtics, 9 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He was terrible. He shot 29% from the field and 13% from 3. His offensive rating against the Celtics this year was 89. Okay. And his defensive rating was 128, which means he did not defend well. The Knicks did not defend well with him on the floor, and they did not score well with him on the floor. So he definitely becomes a wild card because he was so poor. Again, I think by far his worst stats against any team in the league this year was against the Celtics. He was a minus 17 with him on the floor, minus 17.1 in those 3 games with him on the floor. So he did not have much impact, or if not a negative impact, when he was on the floor this year against the Celtics in those 3 games that he appeared. 2 for 15 from 3, 8 for 27 from the field. Just 3 steals for a guy as a good defender, 5 turnovers, like terrible numbers. And so we'll see if he can atone for that. So that makes him, to me, the wild card.
Facts.
All right. Before we move on, I have a quick shout out to you if you're listening. You made it this far. Except for you, Tim. But we just want to ask and quickly interrupt to ask for you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of great other Celtics content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so that you know when a new video drops the instant that it does. And while you're at it, you can support our sponsors like Gametime, which allows us to keep the content coming your way free of charge. But let's also look at this matchup from a coaching perspective. So what are you both looking forward to when it comes to the way that Joe Mazzulla is going to approach this game?
Gary should go first because that's his boy.
Of course he should. Of course.
I think Mazzulla, he'll be completely ready for this series. Remember, we were all concerned about how they would do against the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. He comes out with a game plan that basically, full court press and Luka, and basically he outcoached Jason Kidd leaps and bounds. I think that he'll be prepared. He'll have 5 days to prepare for game 1. Obviously, now that they know their opponent, for a little bit less, but they're off. They won on Tuesday, and now they're starting to work out and prepare for the Knicks. I think he'll have a game plan, something different that we haven't seen against Brunson. You're not going to stop Brunson, right? You're not going to contain him to 10 points or 12 points. You just have to make him work hard for his buckets and keep him off the free throw line. He did not have a great series he had his moments against the Pistons. Asar Thompson was really holding him down until that last play where he shook Asar into.
It was a push up, Gary. He pushed off.
Asar, I think Asar landed. He was in he was in Dearborn or something. I mean, he was in
Southfield.
He was in Troy or something. He was, by the time he looked up, he was like at the Southfield Mall
in Auburn Hills.
Yeah, he was like, damn, the game ain't the Palace no more. Like, oh shoot. Let me get back on the bench because I thought we was playing the Palace. So
right.
I just think Joe will have it. I trust Joe to have a game plan defensively, especially to try to limit the Knicks. So a little bit, mixing it up a little bit, maybe mixing some lineups, maybe implementing someone new. I know he kept the rotation tight. I think maybe Torrey Craig, maybe he kept it at 8 during the playoffs with Cornette, Pritchard, and Hauser. Does he go to a 9th? Does he give someone else some minutes? I think that we'll see a wrinkle that we have not seen yet this year. And I think Joe will be completely and fully prepared for this series. I think he understands how big this is. I think they have the full attention and respect of the New York Knicks. I don't think they're looking at the Knicks like, oh, we smashed you 4 games during the regular season. This is going to be a cakewalk. I think, let's be honest, these teams have looked forward to facing each other in the playoffs for years now, and especially this year. This is, as I said before, this is why the Knicks got Anunoby and Bridges to defend Tatum and Brown, right? This is why they got Cat in the offseason. They have been preparing for this series for a while, and the Celtics have known that the Knicks have been looming, and it could have been last year, but the Knicks lost in 7 to Indiana, so they didn't meet in the conference finals last year. Both teams have been prepared for this, and so I think Joe figures out some new game plans and new wrinkles, right, to throw at the Knicks they have not seen.
I think as the series goes along, I absolutely agree with you on that, Gary. But I think for game 1, I think Joe is just going to keep it relatively simple until simplicity ain't working. They've been able to win convincingly by kind of sticking with the same script. I do like the idea of having Torrey Craig play because I do think OG is going to be a bigger factor in this series than he was in the regular season. And Torrey, to me, is a guy not only in terms of matching with OG, but also just Torrey's switchability, where if they try to run pick and roll action, he has the ability to stay with the guy who's popping out or a guy who's rolling to the basket. So or if he gets switched out on one of the guards like Jalen Brunson, he ain't going to shut him down, but I do think he has enough flexibility and versatility to at least contest his shots. But I think Joe is going to keep it pretty simple in game 1 because I just don't think the Celtics really need to start making changes and adjustments unless they need to. What they do works. And if you have Jrue Holiday back in the mix, that's going to be a bit of a lineup tweak that we didn't see for the most part in that first round series. So that in itself is going to have the Celtics looking very different than what the Knicks may have seen throughout the course of Boston series with Orlando. But bottom line is this: the Celtics got more talent. They got better players. And the time that they have been able to rest without any wear and tear on the body, the Celtics, there's absolutely no question about it that they are going to benefit heavily from a better rested Jaylen Brown, from a better rested Jrue Holiday, from a better rested Jason Tatum, who, people forget that he had that really bad looking sprained wrist that he's been able to play through. So he's going to be able to be a little bit healthier. And we've already talked about Porzingis as well. So the Celtics, again, I expect them to basically approach this game the way they've done the previous ones against New York, and just unless they have to make some changes, there's just no need to. But I think as the series goes along, Gary, to your point, I do think that they're going to have to evolve a little bit, and you just hope that the adjustments that Joe makes eventually are adjustments that he makes in game as opposed to the next game. Because if he's having to make them next game, it means they probably caught a loss. Tibbs, my man. Tibbs, look, he gonna ride that starting 5 until he can't ride him no more. And you hear mixed comments about his starters and the fact that they play a lot of minutes, just like a lot of teams play a lot of minutes this time. But the problem for Thibodeau is that the reason he plays his guys isn't because he's trying to wear them down. It's because he doesn't have really a lot of viable options to turn to on that bench. Their bench consistently gets outscored by opponents. And when you look at the Celtics starting 5 against the Knicks starting 5, Boston offensively is as good or better. So if you're getting little to no production from your bench, your starters are getting outscored, guess what happens? You're going to get that ass whipped by double digits more times than not. And that's what we've seen throughout the course of the regular season between these two. I think we're going to see that throughout this playoff series. And New York, I think they're going to have a game, maybe 2, where things are just going to click and work for them. But I just don't see them winning this series. And Tibbs, I think he's going to make lots of adjustments. He's going to, his team's going to play really good defense. They're going to have stretches where that defense is really going to be clicking, and they're going to get turnovers and getting out on a break and finishing. Brunson knocking down shots. All that is going to happen. But at the end of the day, he ain't got the tools to win this series. And no matter how good a coach he is, because I think he's a hell of a coach, I just don't think that they have enough people power to get past the Celtics.
Yeah, I think Tibbs, like Sherrod said, is going to ride his starters. The question is, will fatigue play a factor? This is teams coming off an emotional series against Detroit, probably a little longer than they wanted. Some of those guys are going to be tired. Will that play a part eventually in catching up with the New York Knicks? And how much will he play a guy like Mitchell Robinson? Now, Mitchell Robinson the team is much better defensively with him on the floor, but he's a terrible free throw shooter. And you saw what sparked the Pistons comeback in Game 6 was them doing hack-a-mitch and him missing free throws, and it kind of stymied their whole offensive momentum. How much will Mitchell Robinson play a part in this series? What about Deuce McBride? What about Cam Payne? Are those, because their bench, like you said, Sherrod, is not all that deep or talented. They've got a guy like Landry Shamet, but he didn't play much. He didn't play much at all in the series. Like, the Knicks are a team that relies heavily on its starters, and that's the part that really can take a toll at this time of year when you don't just have that depth. And I'm just looking, at the rest of the bench, and it's just like,
who that dude?
They did not play Precious Achiuwa.
Precious?
Yeah. God. But that's pretty much it. I mean, McBride, Robinson, and Cam Payne are their 3 reserves. Those guys, none of those guys scare you, although obviously Robinson is a guy who can get boards and get scored the paint, and McBride can get hot from 3, and Cam Payne here and there, but he's a little bit erratic. But you're looking at the rest of the bench, and there's nobody there that you're saying to yourself, man, that dude could come out here and make a real difference in this series. So it's going to have to be the starters. And every Knicks starter this year averaged 35 minutes, at least 35 minutes a game.
Wow.
I mean, that's saying a lot, right? That's old school NBA. So if you're the Knicks, who do you have? What are the options that Tibbs goes to down the stretch? How much are you gonna rely on your bench? How much are you gonna rely on guys to make plays? Can you have any faith in your second unit? And that's going to be important in this series. How much do you run Brunson out there? Do you play him 42, 43 minutes a game in this series? And Towns, do you play him 42, 43 minutes? Like, are you just going to go, hey, I'm going down with my guys, my starters. A lot of these guys, you know what? I can't trust those guys. And it looks like from the Detroit series, he didn't trust Achiuwa, he didn't trust Landry Shamet, and he didn't trust DeLon Wright. They didn't play in that series much at all. So I'm intrigued to see how Tibbs plays his starters, but you expect he's going to play them heavy minutes. And, they're going to play tough. They're going to play hard. They're going to chase loose balls. They're going to want to, like the Orlando, they're going to want to muck up the series. They're going to want to make it physical. They're going to take a page from Orlando's book, I'm sure, to how to defend the Celtics, and they want the Celtics to be frustrating. And if it's a pretty series, the Celtics are going to win in 4 or 5. If it's an ugly, rough series, that's going to keep the Knicks alive.
Celtics win in 6.
Yeah.
So what lessons do you both see each coach taking from their first round wins in their respective series and bringing it into the second round?
What you got, Gary?
I think with the Celtics, I think Joe learned how an elite defense is going to guard them, and they did. And what happens there? How can you prepare for your team better to score and to win? Because you like to win shooting the 3-point shot. You want to win in your preferred way. You do not want to win ugly like they did in a lot of those games. But I thought that was a good lesson to know, for the Celtics to know and learn how to win with versatility, win with getting to the free throw line, win with a 2-point shot. So I think Joe definitely takes a lot from that, especially how Orlando defended and how physical they were. And I think the playbook for the Knicks is going to be, hey, push them around a little bit, get them frustrated. Let's see how that goes. Let's see when you get, those guys a little upset. What about a flagrant foul? Is that going to work out? How is that going to impact the game? Maybe you're going to push Porzingis around a little bit more than, and see how he does. Obviously, him playing against his former team and him going back to the Garden going to be very emotional for him. obviously being a former lottery pick for the Knicks. So I think Joe learns from that Orlando series in terms of how Orlando played defense and how, and sometimes the one-on-one play from Banchero and Wagner. How do you let Brunson just go nuts and guard everybody else? Do you try to contain Brunson? Like, what do you do with Brunson in terms of his ball dominance? Because obviously Orlando basically had 2 guys in the series that could score. The rest of the guys couldn't really score consistently. The Knicks have guys, like I said, Anunoby and Bridges and at times Hart, but it's basically Cat and Brunson. What do you do? Do you let those guys go for theirs and shut the rest down? I think Joe probably takes a page out of the book he used against Orlando to just kind of make sure that, 1, Brunson and Cat don't get loose too much, but 2, you respect the other guys and make sure that they're accounted for too.
Yeah. I'm just worried about the others. Because Brunson going to get his. Pat, maybe, maybe not. Don't really matter. But it's some others that I worry about. Because if they're eating good, you got a problem. Because they most of the time they starving out there. They're not giving you a whole lot of anything. So that, to me, that I think that has to be a big part of Joe's plan for this series.
You mentioned Cat throughout this episode. We've talked about the Cat versus KP lineup. What do you two think will come from this matchup?
I think Porzingis is going to bust him. I think Porzingis is going to have a big series. I think KP is going to outplay him in all facets of the game. Carl will have more rebounds because I just think he's a better rebounder than Porzingis, in part because he spends more time around the rim than Porzingis does. But I think when the series is over and you start looking at the receipts that each player brings to the table, and then you see that the Celtics are going back to the conference finals again, a big part of that is going to be the ability of KP to outperform Cat.
What does KP have to do that, though?
He has to play his game. I mean, he has an inside-outside game. He has the ability to score on a block. And when forcing that Knicks defense to rotate and do some things they may not necessarily want to do, he's going to make them pay, I think, with good passes to his teammates. He's going to get his points. And defensively, he gives you a presence around the rim that, frankly, is going to be, I think at times, is going to be a problem for the Knicks other than Jalen Brunson. And those things collectively are going to make it so that the Celtics will win this thing going away. And I think KP's play is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think Porzingis needs to make Towns defend. The one thing the Celtics are going to want to do is make Town a defender. He's not a great defender at all, right?
Terrible. That's the word you want.
You want to get him away from the basket where he's not grabbing 10, 15 rebounds, and he's not gobbling up all the boards. So Porzingis is going to bring him away from the basket. You want him to guard Porzingis in the perimeter where Porzingis can either A, get his three-point shot over Cat, or B, pass it to a Tatum or a Brown or even a Derek White who can get into the paint and score with no rim protection. That's what you're going to have. That's what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to use Porzingis as the central point of the offense, put him in the middle. If New York decides to play a little bit of zone, have him distribute too. Right, because you got to account for him. Or, do you have like an Anunoby or a Josh Hart guard KP, and then you have Cat lurking inside to get rebounds? Like, that's the chess game here. How are the Knicks going to, they're not going to just put everybody one-on-one with everybody and go guard him. They're going to mix it up. And the question is with Cat, do you leave him in the paint? The Knicks don't want him playing defense 30 feet away from the basket. But if the Celtics spread the floor with their shooters and you have Porzingis out there, he's going to have to. So you want him away from the basket. You want him to work as hard on defense. You want him to be tired in the fourth quarter. You want him to have a fatigue factor there. You want him not to to take the ball to the hoop. Cat has a habit of settling for the three. He's a good shooter, but he has a habit of not wanting to put his big butt in the paint, and he wants to shoot threes and look pretty. You want him to opt for that as opposed to getting in the paint, getting and ones and getting to the free throw line, and you want him to defend. So to me, KP is one of the key players in the series. If you can draw Cat away from the basket, open up the paint.
before we wrap up, I have one last plead for our listeners and viewers. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, leave a review. And for those that are watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe as well to the CLNS Media and Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and lots of other great Celtics content that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. It would be worth it. So also, please make sure your notifications are on so that when new episodes do drop, you know the moment it does. For Gary Washburn and Kwani Lunis, and we're looking forward to this second round, so I'm glad we did this preview, and for H-Trap as well. This is the Big 3 NBA podcast. Thank you all for listening.